Charlotte 911, Brown. Do you need police, fire, or medic?
I need police. My husband just hit me. I'm at across the hall at my neighbor's house.
Everyone would certainly agree one death from domestic violence is too many, but these pictures show bruised backs and thighs. Proof police say it is happening here in shocking numbers.
One in 4 women will be physically assaulted by a current or former partner in her lifetime. That means we all know someone who's impacted by domestic violence, even if that person doesn't ever speak about it.
It is unimaginable. It's not just about the physical. There's mental, there's emotional, there's financial, there's verbal. There's so many different aspects of it. It's overwhelming.
The movement to end domestic violence in North Carolina started much like the movement nationally started in the mid-70s and late 1980s, when there was a groundswell of awareness around domestic violence and women's rights in general. By 1981, there were 20 domestic violence programs and 9 known domestic violence shelters in North Carolina. As a result of a leadership and visioning conference in 1984, the North Carolina Association of Domestic Violence Programs was reorganized and became the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence. The training project, technical assistance to member programs, and public policy advocacy are really the cornerstone of our work and have been during the 3 decades of our existence.
In addition to our member programs who provide domestic violence and sexual assault services, we have a large community of allied professionals, including the faith community, attorneys, universities, medical professionals, and law enforcement who work with us to improve system responses to domestic violence all across the state of North Carolina.
The Coalition Against Domestic Violence has 4 recognized caucuses: the Women of Color Caucus, the Lesbian and Bisexual Women's Caucus, our SOAR Caucus, which is Sisters Overcoming Abusive Relationship, otherwise known as our Survivors Caucus, and the Rural Caucus. And it's a great opportunity for underserved populations to come together and to also get empowered and to have support through other advocates.
And how they support SOAR is allowing us to be that voice. Any convention or any ceremony they have, any program they have, we are the true educators because we've survived it.
I think it's important that there is an agency that's providing training to all disciplines, but specifically to domestic violence service providers.
The Coalition works really hard in making training available that is not costly. Many times their training is free.
Training on a host of different areas like community organizing, shelter forum, domestic violence advocacy, court advocacy, training on all these topics that's very important, and of course the technical assistance.
They know the needs of our staff. You know, they know the cutting edge issues that people are struggling with, and constantly they're providing things that people can benefit from.
Since 2004, we've really began to solidify a strong working relationship with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. We've provided training to school professionals to help them be able to recognize and respond to domestic violence, and we've provided that training curriculum to our member programs.
One curriculum specifically I use is safe dates, because when we look at a lot of our teens who are dating now, they really don't know what a healthy relationship will look like because there's so much domestic violence in the homes. In order to change societal norms, we have to look at where the problem lies. Most times, our young boys at an early age, domestic violence is a learned behavior.
Every other year, the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence hosts a statewide conference. This is a conference that we open up to everyone and anyone who is interested in learning more about domestic violence issues for our state. And it's a great opportunity for all of our wonderful advocates, friends, members, citizens, and professionals to get together and start having a dialogue around how can we end domestic violence in the state of North Carolina.
The The North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence is really the only statewide nonprofit committed solely to the issue of domestic violence. And we're the only organization that commits so many resources to advancing public policy and legislative initiatives.
We hold a couple of membership meetings every year, and at those membership meetings, advocates, allies, and survivors who attend are able to express what they feel are the most pressing needs in their communities for legislative change. And what our membership deem as the most important legislative issues of the day are the issues that our lobbyists and our public policy director and our executive director advance to the legislature every year.
We work closely with the Joint Legislative Committee on Domestic Violence, and we are very fortunate that our state has a dedicated committee of lawmakers to work on the issue of domestic violence.
They've just been invaluable. They have provided me with education and information so that I could better help introduce legislation. They've been really instrumental in advocating with the General Assembly in ensuring that funds are appropriated to address all of the needs of victims of domestic violence, and also have some positive impact on the laws of North Carolina so that the alleged assaulters or people who are abusive are in fact punished.
I think it's important that there's an agency looking at the impact that domestic violence has on the citizens of North Carolina.
The North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence tracks the domestic violence homicides for our state. And what we're seeing on average is about 75 people are dying due to domestic violence per year in our state.
It is estimated that anywhere between 3.3 and 10 million children are exposed to domestic violence annually in our country.
If we prevent a child from having to experience the emotional trauma, in the long run, it's cheaper for the state of North Carolina, because certainly we want children who are healthy mentally and physically, and if they are not, it's going to cost someone, and usually the state intervenes and helps defray that cost.
Domestic violence impacts all communities, and when one person is a victim of domestic violence and she has parents, siblings, friends, neighbors, everyone is impacted by that. Domestic violence really has a ripple effect, and a prime example is Karen Crawford, who was a victim of domestic violence.
Karen Crawford was murdered by her boyfriend, and this marked the first domestic violence homicide for the state of North Carolina in 2006. She was an avid motorcycle enthusiast, as are her friends. And April of that year, they put together a bike rally, and they came to our memorial tree in Durham Central Park. This has now become an annual event for the Coalition Against Domestic Violence and a fundraiser for us. The money that we raised in 2006 helped to build the Karen Crawford Memorial Resource Library, and this library houses hundreds and hundreds of books, videos, news articles that all of our members get to utilize as part of their benefits to membership with the coalition.
When you talk about growth with the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence, one thing that I have seen, which I truly love, is the Men for Change Award. What better way than to have men, good, positive men, come in and say, I want to help, because we can't do it by ourselves.
I do want to thank the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence for coming up with the idea of recognizing men, and I want to officially say that I'm going to switch to Verizon Wireless and RBC Centura.
Tonight I was asked to share with you why RBC Centura donates to a movement to eliminate domestic violence. 75% of our workforce is female, so as much as we don't like to think about it, there's the potential our employees will have the need to use an agency supported by this group.
Another way that corporate partners can really invest in the work of the coalition is by creating workplace safety policies around domestic violence. They can partner with us to sponsor some of our training, technical assistance, and public policy efforts because the core of being able to make some of these advances is having the financial backing and the staffing to be able to invest the time on the ground that's needed.
It does happen a lot more to women that they are the victims of domestic violence than they are the offenders. But it doesn't mean that it makes it, therefore, a woman's issue. It is society's issue to fix and resolve.
We all must be a part of the community in making a difference for these individuals so that they can continue to be productive and happy members of our society. And we cannot do it without donations from all segments of our community.
Every day that we send an appropriate message to a child, every day that we tell a victim of domestic violence, you have a safe place to go and you don't have to continue to be victimized, and every day that we have men who are willing to engage other men and say, this is a way to be a healthy man and a father and a partner, then we are ending domestic violence.
We are an organization of hope, and we're an organization of encouragement, and we're an organization of empowerment, because we know that through the work we do, we can transform lives, and that by working together, we can prevent and end domestic violence in North Carolina.